So whether you're looking to travel from New York to London or from Los Angeles to Tokyo, or if you just want to take a domestic trip from Maine down to Florida, what I want to do today is break down for you guys, both domestically and internationally, the best ways you can utilize your Amex points to redeem them for travel, specifically for flights. I know there's a lot of content out there that describes different ways you can utilize your Amex points for maximum value, but they're specifying only particular travel destinations, which are only originating from a certain place. And so what I want to do today is give you guys a summary of those best ways to utilize the Amex points, more or less regardless of your travel destinations, so you can make your choices based off of wherever you wanted to go in the first place and not making your travel plans around what the best point transfers are. So once again, the way I want to do this is first start by summarizing the ways you can utilize your points to book them for domestic travel, which is within the US, so travel originating from a city in the United States and a destination on that trip also in the US. And then I'm going to get into international travel. So for the purposes of this video, I'm going to break down the international travel into different continents. So if you're traveling to Europe, or if you're traveling to Asia or Africa or the Middle East, I'm going to give you guys a quick analysis of the best ways you can maximize your point transfers and redeem your Amex points on different partner loyalty programs to maximize the benefits when you're traveling to each of those destinations. Before I get into this list, I want to clarify that the best way to utilize your Amex points is to transfer them to these partnership loyalty programs to then use them for flights, whether it's domestic or international, and especially for business or first class travel in order to maximize that benefit and get the highest cent per point value. This is something that I talked about in much more depth in my last video, which was the best ways to utilize your Amex points to redeem them for maximum value. So if you haven't already seen that video, definitely check it out here. It's more or less a part one of what this video is going to get into, which is more depth into specifically how to book flights using your Amex points. So with that being said, let's get started with this list. And we're going to start off with domestic travel, which is in the United States. The first method to maximizing your American Express membership rewards points, especially with travel in the United States, is going to be transferring them to AeroMexico, which is a partner of Delta Airlines as they're part of the SkyTeam Alliance, and then utilizing those AeroMexico miles to then actually book those flights on Delta. So while the best way to do this is definitely subjective, I'm going to explain to you guys why I think this is the best value you can get out of your Amex points. If you remember from the last video that I touched on, AeroMexico is the only airline transfer partner that has more than a 1-to-1 point transfer ratio. If you look at the rest of this list, the only other one currently that has a higher point ratio for transfer is Hawaiian Miles, which actually is currently an offer that they're running until the end of the month. That being said, normally AeroMexico is the only partner that does allow you to transfer your Amex membership rewards points for more than the face value that they have in your Amex portal. So 1,000 American Express membership rewards points is equal to 1,600 AeroMexico Club Premier points, which if you look at this, at face value, this is already the best value that you're getting. Now, a quick caveat to this is that the ways that these transfer partners actually allow you to book those flights is that some of them utilize dynamic pricing, and Delta is one of them. So what this means is that based off of demand, the flights can be more or less expensive on a given day versus other transfer partners like Etihad that have a standard rate regardless of the time that you book the flight, as long as there's availability. So I'm going to show you guys what this means in practice and do a quick analysis on the actual point value that you're getting by transferring those points to AeroMexico and then booking a Delta flight with them. So for our scenario, since we're talking about domestic flights, let's say we're traveling from New York JFK to LAX in Los Angeles. We're going to do a one-way on February 28th to make this easy, and then have a look with Shop for Miles. If we look at the options here, we have Basic, Main Cabin, Comfort Plus, First, and Delta One, and these are for the various flights that are operating on Tuesday, February 28th. Just to have a benchmark, we're also going to look at United Airlines and American Airlines just to compare. So we're going to see here that our basic economy ticket on Tuesday, February 28th with Delta is going to be 12,000 points plus $6. And on United, it's going to be 10,000 points plus $5, give or take. And on American, it's going to be 12,500 points plus roughly $5. Now, if you remember from what we just talked about, our point transfer from American Express membership rewards points to AeroMexico is 1-to-1.6. So if you think about this, it's more like you're utilizing 7,500 membership rewards points to get the same flight on Delta that you otherwise would have to spend over 10,000 points on United and then more than 12,000 points on American. In just this one use case, it makes it a no-brainer that transferring those points over to AeroMexico and then booking a Delta flight with those miles is the best way to maximize your benefit traveling domestically. Now, one thing that I'll mention is that these benefits scale in terms of your value that you're getting when you book a business or a premium ticket, like a first class ticket. As the more expensive the tickets get, the greater the margin between what you're actually paying with your points is and the actual cash price that you would otherwise have to pay. So that's example number one. I would say I'm definitely definitely a little bit biased because as an Amex Platinum card holder, we do have access to the Sky Club lounges by Delta. And if you fly anywhere with Delta, at least in the States, generally it's going to be through a hub or a major location that more oftentimes than not is going to have a Sky Club lounge. That's obviously in addition to the American Express Centurion lounge that you of course have access to with the Amex Platinum or the Amex Centurion. But all things considered, I would say Delta is definitely my airline of choice if we're talking about American Airlines exclusively. Now for option number 2, and the best way is to utilize your Amex points to book domestic flights, it's actually going to be utilizing your Amex points and transferring them to KrisFlyer miles and then booking them through United. So in concept, this is a similar method. What you're doing is transferring your American Express membership rewards points to a partner alliance airline, which in this case is Singapore Airlines. And I would say the best part about this one is that you can utilize it to book United business or first class tickets for a lot cheaper than what you would have to pay in cash. Another key difference with this one versus the Delta booking is that the KrisFlyer miles redemption chart has a standard rate at which you can purchase United flights with and isn't dynamic pricing that can change based off of the demand. Now the simple way to do the analysis here is to look at the Star Alliance award chart. So the way to read this is you take a look at your origin here at the top on the columns. And so if we're thinking about travel in North America, we're gonna be looking at this column here and follow this down till you see North America here on the left. And so because this figure is in thousands of KrisFlyer miles, which you'll see it's 25,000 KrisFlyer miles, which is a standard for economy class, 40,000 for business class, and 60,000 for first class. Once again, as a Star Alliance membership, they have a partnership with United Airlines, which allows you to book their tickets on this standard rate as long as there's availability. Now, in order to maximize the benefit here, you want to make sure that you actually look up the cash price of the flight you're looking at as well. So for example, if it's too far in advance that there's no demand for your flight and it's really cheap to book it without membership points, then you might as well just do that because you're also getting 10x points on that with your Amex Platinum instead of going through transferring your points and then getting a worse rate than you would if you just bought it with cash. And I realize I'm saying cash here, but it's obviously like you're paying with your card in this scenario, but I think you guys get what I mean. Now these rates can certainly change, but it's almost a no-brainer that you would use the KrisFlyer miles plan versus the actual United Mileage Plus plan, because for whatever reason, the Star Alliance plan is better than what the airline's own mileage plan is. So if you're using your membership rewards points to book a flight on United, make sure that you transfer them over to Singapore Airlines first, and then book through them using those miles to then get the most value by booking a domestic United flight. So the third one on this list is actually booking flights to Mexico for the same price that you could for flights within the United States. And while I get this isn't technically domestic flights, it's a different tier considered by the airlines versus traveling to a different continent. And so I'm gonna explain to you guys how this works. So utilizing FlyingBlue, which is the joint loyalty program of Air France, KLM, and a number of different airlines, you can utilize those miles to travel from the US to Mexico for only 18,500 miles each direction, which is the lowest price for obviously economy tickets. But those prices are the same as what you'd pay to fly somewhere in the US, because with FlyingBlue in their regions, they actually consider the entirety of North America as the same redemption value, so you can travel within the States and Mexico for the same prices you would anywhere in the States. It also has to be mentioned that FlyingBlue has pretty insane promo rewards at times, which are usually either 25 or 50% off economy class and business class tickets, especially from Europe to other cities around the world like in North America. The last one I want to mention with domestic travel is actually a little hack that I talked about in a previous video that I thought would be useful to mention in this one. If you don't already know, if you have the Amex Platinum card, you get a $200 airline fee credit every year, which is things like food on the airplane, Wi-Fi, or paying for checked baggage. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that seems like a complete waste of money because there's no way I'd be spending $200 a year in buying food on an airplane or purchasing Wi-Fi on the plane, which I never do because I have T-Mobile, so I get Wi-Fi for free anyway. The better way to do this is to actually book a flight using these airline fee credits. And let me tell you guys how. So with United, there's this thing called United TravelBank. So what you have to do is just Google United TravelBank, have a look at their website. You can log in with the same Mileage Plus account that you would on the normal United website. Once you go to Fund My Account, you want to make sure that United is selected as your airline of choice for the year, and you can only change it once per year in order to do this. I believe it's calendar year, so starting January 1st of this year, you would have been able to change your airline from what you had last year. Once you're on the TravelBank website, you want to select a purchase amount, and because the credit you get from Amex is $200 every year, what you want to do is select $100 and do this twice. You enter your payment information and then purchase it, and then within about a week, you should see that credit come back to your Amex Platinum. Utilizing this TravelBank cash, in addition to booking with miles, especially domestically in the US, is a very easy way to get free flights, especially if you book it well in advance. So that's just kind of a pro tip for you guys if you weren't aware of already, that you can utilize in addition to these mileage point transfers to maximize the benefits out of utilizing those American Express membership points. So now let's talk about international travel. To contextualize this, we have to select a place to travel from, and for the purposes of this video, we're going to be traveling from the United States. So international, we're going to consider as any place outside of the US, not on North America, because according to loyalty programs, most of the time they lump North America together with Canada, US, and Mexico. I'm gonna group these transfer methods into 3 different categories, the first one being Europe, the second one being Asia, and the third one being Africa and the Middle East. This is also generally just how the airlines do it, and so it's the easiest for me to explain to you guys how these point transfers work and the best ways to redeem your points for maximum value when traveling internationally. The first one is going to be by far flying Lufthansa first class to Europe from the United States. If you haven't seen the photos or if you haven't traveled first class in Lufthansa, I personally have not, but it looks pretty damn good and definitely one of the cooler ways you can travel from the US to Europe if you're planning on taking a trip this upcoming year. As you guys probably know, Avianca LifeMiles is a travel partner of AMEX. What you can do is transfer your membership rewards points over to LifeMiles and then book a ticket from the US to Europe. To fly first class using this method, it only costs 87,000 LifeMiles plus $31 in taxes and fees. One important thing to note with this price is that Avianca LifeMiles doesn't charge you $1,000 in fuel surcharge fees going each way. This is something that if you otherwise would be purchasing on a different airline program, it would sometimes cost you more in the fuel surcharges than the flight itself. So some examples of this are going from LAX to FRA, and if you take a look at this price that you'd have to pay if you paid it in cash, it's an extremely good deal. Even if you just consider that 87,000 LifeMiles with a transfer of 1-to-1 from American Express membership rewards points at a 1 cent per point value, it is a pretty good deal for an awesome traveling experience in first class. Now, what I would consider is the second best way in maximizing your membership rewards points in booking a flight to Europe is by transferring those membership rewards points over to the FlyingBlue loyalty program and then booking a Virgin Atlantic upper class ticket. Now, Virgin Atlantic is notorious for some of its fuel surcharges, and fortunately the FlyingBlue loyalty program is actually one of those that bypasses those when you book a redemption with a flight through Virgin Atlantic. So with this redemption method, you can fly to Europe in Virgin Atlantic upper class from about 67,000 miles to about 106,000 miles one way. The taxes and fees is generally about $200 per person for this. Once again, with some of these loyalty programs for the airline's own platform, it's going to be better to utilize the membership rewards points to transfer them to a different loyalty program and then booking their flights with those points. It doesn't really make sense to me why the airlines want to do this, but if you can figure this out and utilize the correct loyalty program to book the correct airline tickets, you can usually score a pretty good deal like you can by using FlyingBlue miles on Virgin Atlantic. Now, for our second continent on this list, we're talking about flying to Asia. We cannot talk about this list without talking about Singapore Suites. As good as the KrisFlyer miles program is with Singapore Airlines already, Singapore Suites is just another really good reason to transfer your AMEX membership rewards points over to KrisFlyer miles. For those of you guys that are not aware, Singapore Suites is probably the most lavish flying experience that there is out there. If you book 2 tickets for Singapore Suites with you and your partner, you literally get a bed in the sky. In addition to that, it's just a really long flight in general that you want to fly in comfort, and apparently Singapore Airlines really knows how to do luxury, and this is definitely a trip that I want to take myself using my AMEX points because it's definitely not a flight or ticket that I can purchase on my own. Redeeming a flight award for these suites costs 148,500 miles one way from JFK to Singapore. The beauty of redeeming your points this way is actually that KrisFlyer miles is the native loyalty program for Singapore Airlines, and then you'd then be flying Singapore Airlines through this. So you're not transferring your points to another loyalty program and then booking another flight through that. While there's nothing wrong with that, it just makes it a lot easier in my opinion to do this. And so if this is a trip that you've been looking to take, I would definitely take advantage because the value you're getting out of your points by booking this trip and redeeming those points through KrisFlyer miles is really good. It's also worth noting that you can experience Suites class by booking a flight between JFK and Frankfurt as well, and one way is about 97,000 points. So it's safe to say that this point redemption is an insanely good value to purchase a ticket that would otherwise be unattainable and experience a flight in probably the best first class experience there is out there. So the second option with flying to Asia and redeeming your AMEX points for maximum value I want to talk about briefly is transferring your points to the ANA MileageClub so you can fly round trip ANA in business class to Japan. If Japan is one of your travel destinations for the year, it's definitely worth it to transfer those points to ANA because there's also a great point value redemption by booking a flight once you transfer those points over to the ANA platform. Currently, ANA flights to Japan cost 85,000 miles round trip. This is in business class and can go as low as about 80,000 or even 70,000 points at times. For the same ticket, economy class will usually run you about 50,000 miles. Similar to other loyalty programs, ANA has a standard flight redemption value, which is a great thing because depending where you're going, as long as it's within the region, it allows you to redeem those miles miles for a flight in business, first, or economy, regardless of where you go, as long as there's availability. A quick Google search of what it would cost to go from JFK to Tokyo shows us that in business class, the minimum price is about $3,000 US, which makes redeeming only 85,000 miles for a round-trip flight in business class an insanely good deal. Now, the last one I want to cover is utilizing your Amex points to travel to Africa or the Middle East for maximum value. I would say that once again, KrisFlyer miles is going to be your best bet for this one. Once you've transferred those membership rewards points at a 1-to-1 transfer ratio over from Amex to KrisFlyer miles, you can then utilize them to fly to the Middle East and North Africa from the US. Now, if for whatever reason you're on the Singapore Airlines webpage and you can't find a flight option for the originating city and the destination that you're trying to travel to, all you have to do is actually just call customer service for them to book the flight for you using your miles. This will happen sometimes when you're trying to book a flight from a loyalty program with a different airline, but just know that it still works. You just have to take that one extra step to call the airline and book it that way. I would say that if it was just super easy to book it online, everyone would probably do it, and so having to call customer service is probably their way of making people think that, oh, it's too much work and I don't want to do this. But if you're saving what would be over $5,000 on a one-way first class ticket flight, I would say it's definitely worth it to make that call to customer service and book them through your miles. Utilizing your KrisFlyer miles, you can get to the Middle East or North Africa for just 52,000 miles one-way in economy class, or about 88,000 miles one-way in business class, and over 100,000 miles one-way in first class. Once again, the value you're getting out of this versus paying cash for especially business and first class tickets is absolutely nuts. And so if you're trying to travel internationally, whether it's to the Middle East or North Africa in this case, utilize those KrisFlyer miles so you don't have to pay the exorbitant price that it is for a first class ticket. Now, another loyalty program that I really like is Etihad, but actually this method of redeeming your points is actually using the Air Canada AeroPlan to then book an Etihad flight. So from the US, Air Canada's AeroPlan charges about 85,000 to 100,000 points to fly one way on Etihad business class to the Middle East or Africa. If you guys are aware, Etihad has a very solid business class that is oftentimes better than some other airlines' first class offerings. You can also book Etihad's first class tickets from 120,000 to 130,000 points. Once again, with a standard mileage redemption like for AeroPlan, the beauty of this is that you can travel to multiple different destinations for a standard flat rate utilizing your miles. So once those Amex points are transferred over to AeroPlan, if your total flight distance is between 6,001 and 8,000 miles, it's only 85,000 points in business and 120,000 in first class. If your total flight distance is 8,001 or more miles, it'll be 100,000 points in business and 130,000 points in first class. If you just take a quick look at destinations that are 8,000 or more miles away, you'll see that if you take 100,000 points at 1 cent per point value, making that $1,000 for business class, you're getting a very good value on your points by utilizing them for miles to then book them for these flights. So there you guys have it. That's definitely not all the different ways you can utilize your Amex membership rewards points to book domestic and international travel, but these are definitely, in my opinion, some of the great ways to do it. And so if you're looking at traveling here in the next year, I would definitely consider utilizing some of your points for that travel, especially if you're going on business and first class, because like I said, the value of your points scales enormously with the cash price of those business and first class tickets being so much more than economy. Without a doubt, I would say that utilizing your membership rewards points to book travel through flights, especially internationally, but even domestically using those options that I talked about, is a great way to get a lot of value out of those hard-earned rewards points. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and got some value out of it. Like, comment, subscribe, do all those good things, hit the bell, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.